Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of light and secret knowledge wherever you may be, you are listening to Points of Light Radio, the podcast dedicated to taking you past the apron and behind the closed doors of lodges everywhere. And here is your host, Stan Miller.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Shalom, assalamu alaikum, adnastana. It's a blessing and a pleasure to be back with you here on Points of Light Radio. This is going to be a very interesting segment of Points of Light Radio. Let me begin by saying when I was younger, fraternalism was a guy thing. It really was for the most part. It just seemed to be a guy thing. That was Dad's night out with the guys in many cases, shall we say, for in many families. These were the guys that Dad went golfing with. It was predominantly male dominated, right? But in recent years, we've seen many lodges such as an organization such as the Elks, the Moose, right? All these different organizations, Odd Fellowship, they now have mixed lodges, right? Now, many of these lodges might have had women's auxiliaries. For instance, in the case of Freemasonry, there was the Eastern Star, which was in those days was predominantly, I believe, was essentially the women's branch of Freemasonry, and there may have been a few others. Today, the Eastern Star, I might add, admits both men and women, right? But I want to see how the journey might differ, right, between men and women. How does their fraternal journey differ from that of men? And why is it still largely, am I wrong in assuming that it is still largely something that men do? Women aren't, shall we say, as involved in fraternalism as men, right? What are their attitudes towards it? How does their female attitude differ in regards to fraternalism than men? I do know, like in my case, my wife is completely uninvolved in any type of fraternalism, completely disinterested in it. I might add, I am involved in both all male and mixed organizations before anybody calls me a misogynist. And I was around Odd Fellowship when they were beginning to practice mixed lodges, and I found many of the men who'd been involved in Odd Fellowship for years and years and years I found they were either diametrically opposed to it or completely accepting of it. In fact, thought it was a wonderful thing. So, what's your opinion on this topic? I'm going to have. I know I put it this way. I have featured, in regards to Freemasonry, if you recall, on June 13th, 2022, segment of Points of Light Radio, I fellowshipped with Christine Chapman from Freemasonry for Women in the UK. I was completely unaware until just before that interview that there was female lodges, Masonic lodges. Right? I do hope that particular interview and segment does help bring Freemasonry for Women to North America. That would be wonderful. But I've also featured women from various different other fraternal organizations, from Elks, Moose, Royal Purple Association, Military and Hospitaller Order of St. Lazarus of Jerusalem. Am I missing any? Right? But we will be interviewing in this particular segment. It will be kind of one of my epic ongoing segments. We will be interviewing members doing, retracing our steps a little bit, as well as interviewing some new guests in regards to this particular topic. So without further discussion, brothers and sisters, let's move forward. Let's shed some light. Let's learn. And when it's over, I want your opinion. So let's just step into the light. My first guest is a gentleman named David Casto. You may recall him from a previous segment of Points of Light Radio. He's a Freemason and fraternal junkie from Sterling, Colorado. So the one thing I did want to ask you, do you feel why do you think it is that men tend to be drawn towards fraternalism more than women, shall we say?
I don't know. I honestly, I've talked to my wife a lot about that.
Yeah.
And I've tried to say, hey, you should join Eastern Star, or you should, something like that, right? And she's like, no, it's just not my thing, I think for some women it is, and some women it's not. I think the thing is, like my wife's like, I never saw an example. My mom never did that kind of stuff. Again, right? I've heard it on another podcast. There's a billboard that said, you should join Masonry. Your grandpa was one. You should be a Mason. Your grandpa was one. Not your dad, but your grandpa. And we kind of skipped this generation. And so now we have a lot of young ladies who didn't see their grandmas or great grandmas who were into, maybe the White Shrine, or, Eastern Star, or whatever women's organization at the time. So I think men, but I also think men are just more gregarious animals, honestly.
I think sometimes women tend to, it might be just me, or tell me what you think of this. I think men don't make friends the way women do.
Yeah.
So they have much larger circles of friends. But for guys, we don't. So this is maybe how we do it. We join things. You know what I mean?
I think guys too are naturally drawn to, and some women are, but I think most guys are kind of naturally drawn to these opportunities for leadership and stuff, opportunities for, to be kind of a part of a group. And
or the intrigue,
some women are too. And honestly, I love Eastern Star. I'm not an Eastern Star, and I can't wait to join.
I can't wait to interview them. I haven't done it.
Yeah, and I can't wait to join. But honestly, like we don't have an Eastern Star chapter here, but I wish we did. I've been actually trying to start one, but it's not going super well. But it's because I think having a women's organization for a community is honestly so much better than having a just men's organization for a community, or having a co-ed organization in a community. I'm also a member of the Lions Club.
Okay.
And I love going to that as well, because you get men and women think differently. And when you can mesh those two thoughts together in an organization, you've got it. And it broadens your networking, right? It broadens you. You can have people come in and support your lodge or your order or your chapter or whatever way better when you've got men and women combined. So I think when it comes to a service aspect of your
women I've heard are better fundraisers, shall we say?
They
do a great job of it, right?
Way better. Yeah.
I think sometimes like maybe it is that maybe men don't make friends the same way women do, and we're kind of drawn towards maybe the intrigue factor of these things.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I've never, like, I think it's interesting that I'm just wondering about that. Like, what would draw them towards it more than women? And I think that's there's no, I think you'll agree with me, no one answer maybe to that.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. There's not one answer, and I think it's also different from where you live. You know,
Yeah, maybe
where you live is just the different maybe culture or the what or whatever in that community. I think also is just different.
my next guest is Sharon Au from the Canadian Royal Purple Association. Now, you've been involved in this. It started out, as I understand it, the Royal Purple started out as a primarily women's organization. I've heard it said that women are better fundraisers than men, or better organizers. Would you agree with that, or would you?
I tend to agree with that. Women aren't afraid to work, and they will work their heart off out for what they're passionate about.
And now, someone you've never met before. Her name is Deborah Laverne, and she's with the International Association of Rebecca Assemblies. What do you find is the crucial difference between men and women when it comes to fraternalism? Because you've been in both lodges now, both the Odd Fellowship, and what do you find is that crucial difference between how men operate, shall we say, and how women?
Women have always been socialized to be more cooperative. Men are socialized to be more competitive.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like this.
And so a Rebecca Lodge is going to operate in a much more cooperative manner.
As a team.
As a team.
Okay.
The Noble Grand is going to lead the team, but it's a lead. It's not a boss.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
And every so often you'll get somebody, a grandmaster, who forgets that there's a difference between having influence and having power. You have power, you can tell people to do things, and they will do them because their paycheck depends on it. If you have influence, you have to guide them towards the action you want them to take. And if you try to push too hard when all you have is influence, a volunteer association will have people vote with their feet and leave.
Okay. There you have it, brothers and sisters. 3 different guests from 3 different fraternal organizations, completely different fraternal organizations, offering their opinions. So let's digress, shall we? First of all, my first guest, Mr. Casto, he agrees with me. Okay. Men seem to be drawn, if you've ever, and I can't help but notice this too, look in retrospect, men seem to be drawn to esoteric fraternalism, okay, because of the intrigue, right? That mysticism and so on really gets men, really seems to pique men's interest. Whereas I can't help but notice that women love to join the more community-oriented organizations, or is it just me? Mr. Cousteau also offered that where you live matters. Now, that could make sense because maybe that's why there's Freemasonry for women in the United Kingdom. I mean, that is where it started, and it always has played a much larger role over there. Could that be it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Mrs. Au, now you may recall that's a review that we did there, but she says that women are better fundraisers, right, and aren't afraid to work. And if you ask a guy, and I will say this, if you ask a guy to move all the stuff out of that room, he might complain a little bit, but he'll move it. You ask him to raise funds, sometimes guys really don't like, counting the money and things like that, and organizing, shall we say, fundraisers and things like that. They just don't, right? They'll cook the meat on that barbecue and the hot dogs on that barbecue, but ask them to count money or call people to be at it and things like, oh, they kind of, you know what I mean? Or is it just, there again, I could be wrong, right? Now, Deborah Laverne claims that women make better team players than men, and they aren't as dictatorial when they're in leadership positions. Wow. On a personal level, I have saw some of that dictatorial mindset in fraternalism, and maybe not is what it used to be, but yes, there is some of it there. And I do find, especially when it comes to lodges, men are more likely, shall we say, to be of the mindset of these are my guys in this lodge, or my brothers and sisters in this lodge, right? I'm not going to help that other lodge get on their feet. I've seen a little bit of that in fraternalism, right? Men, Deborah Laverne said that men are very competitive, almost too competitive, and I have personally saw some of that within fraternalism over my time. They do tend to be maybe a little overly competitive, right? That it's just on a personal level. Now, I posited that men don't make friends like women do, and that this could be how we do it. I mean, men are really joiners. You know, and when it comes to stuff like that, they will join, right? And I think sometimes this is where men find their third space, because of the fact that we don't make friends, right? Ask a guy to go out for coffee, ask a guy to go out for, I don't know, like, guys just don't do it. We tend to be, I will admit, on a personal level, I'm very introverted. Very introverted. I really don't make friends easily. And this is how we do it. And I would kind of, that's just my feeling on it. But there again, enough from me, and enough from my guests for that matter. What do you think? I want to hear. What is the difference? Do you think the crucial difference? And I want to hear from both men and women on this. I want both of your opinions. What do you think is the difference between the fraternal experience of men and women? Right? I hope you enjoyed this. I really did. I think I want to come back to this topic eventually. Right? I really do. I want to come back to this topic again, right? If possible, because this is very crucial. I want to hear about it, right? But that is all I have time for today. But before I go, I want to remind you, as always, that this podcast is available on both YouTube and the Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing Points of Light Radio on YouTube. And yes, especially on this topic, I want your comments and input, right? You can follow Points of Light Radio on my Facebook page at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. My Twitter handle is at PO Light Radio. You can see the link to my Spotify channel, as well as my Points of Light Radio store. Brothers and sisters, it's been an honor bringing you this particular segment. Until we meet again, just step into the light.